He's a doer. He's a doer, not a talker. And that impresses me. I am a doer. So I was keen to be part of that. Since then, we've been working partners. It's been 8 years.
Let's talk briefly about some of the, I'm going to say some of the research projects that were done in Europe having to do with the health and physical health issues that he might help me understand, in a very brief general sense, what are, we're going to say, his powers or his skills? What makes him unique? What can he do that other people can't do?
Well, he was extremely famous in Europe. He stole the show on all the TV and press and media for his accomplishments. And healing is what they call it, the unbelievable healer. He was on TV shows that drew audience response, 12 million viewers, equivalent of 70 million in US terms. That's a lot of people watching one guy. And why are they watching? Because he could do what no one else could do. He begins where the medical profession ends. When the medical doctors do what they can do, and we work always with medical doctors, he always has. What he does, medical science cannot do. Where medical science ends is where he begins. What they can do, he does not, and what they cannot do is what he can. He does what reductionist science cannot do. It's beyond what we can see and touch. The five senses that we're working within in the scientific paradigm that we have. It actually is a science, what Philip is doing. He calls it a subliminal science and technology. There are laws to that science. And if you know the laws to that science, you can then apply it in a technology. So it's a non-physical medicine, and in terms of what he was so famous for, it's a non-physical medicine. People were interested in healing. And so he was well known for being able to bring about effects that affected the physical well-being of the recipient, and extremely famous for them. One case, cancer, of course, all kinds of emotional problems, psychological problems. People, spoke about them. There's letters, there's testimonies, there's documents on TV of people, hundreds of thousands of people and animals that he brought about so-called healing. Philip had been tested in the major universities and laboratories in Europe. He had developed a very widespread reputation for what we would call healing. It's actually a science. He was the father of subliminal influentiality and the technology of subliminal distant influence technology. He was known for the effects of that in the laboratories, in the universities. His reputation as a media person with articles in the press, radio, and TV. It culminated in 1990 when he was invited as a special guest on the most popular French TV host show on an independent TV station, TF1. And he appeared on that show with several people that he had taken care of, people suffering from cancer, all the way from cancer, depression, family, a man representing his family, everyone in his family, wife, daughter, himself had been helped. It was, I think, the first time it was exposed publicly that he could do this at a distance. A person was there telling about a friend who had not met Philip, but he worked from a distance on this person. That was a cancer, a child, I think. And the most significant one on that show was the most impressive, although there had been many, many stories in the papers about what he had done with animals, race horses, rescue dogs, farm animals. That was well known. One of the most remarkable cases that appeared on that show was the mother with the child. I guess he was about 1. The child had been diagnosed by medical doctors as having cystic fibrosis, which is a genetic disease. And Philip took care of that baby, the child in the womb, in vitro. And the baby was born without any trace of cystic fibrosis, nor was it evident in the mother's genetic structure anymore. Now that was a premiere in genetic treatment. And that was pretty astounding. It was the first public exposure of that case. That also was on another TV show, actually, where Philip appeared in a debate with a professor of medicine. And as I said before, Philip always worked with doctors and still does. Where the medical domain, and the doctor was very respectful of Philip, very well known, they knew each other, and where the medical domain ends and they cannot help after a certain point, that's where Philip comes in and brings about what look like so-called miracles. They're actually not miracles. They're actually the application of a higher science that he manifests in our reality. After that TV show was run in December 1990, the reaction was overwhelming, as you can imagine. 12 million people watching that show, most of which had somebody they knew or loved suffering or dying. The letters came pouring in. The TV station eventually was forced to give his phone number, and people called and shut down the phone lines in Brittany. The response was so overwhelming, trying to reach this famous Breton healer. As a result, hundreds of thousands of letters came pouring in to Philippe Sauvage to help the people. He took care of as many as he could. He had to qualify them. He couldn't take care of them all. And set up an organization to do so, to help sort who would be the best candidates to take care of. As a result, an organization was set up. Philip took care of as many of those people as he could. Also, as a result, Philip went to Greenland and set up his archaeofuturistic center, kind of a dream coming true, where people could come to Greenland in the pure wilderness, one of the ones that's left on the planet, where they could be processed there in a pure state. So it was an extraordinary thing to offer, and then an extraordinary thing to accomplish. He also represented the most significant historic religious freedom case in American history, or application of the First Amendment, freedom of speech, thought, and religion.
I just want to pick up this First Amendment issue.
Yeah. When Philip came to the United States, he was seeking political asylum from persecution for the practice of what he was practicing, his science and his healing. Philip Sauvage actually represents the most historic and significant religious freedom case in American history. That's my field. I'm a sociologist. I documented this. The application of the U.S. Constitution, First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, freedom of speech, thought, and religion. He was protected vociferously under our Constitution against French persecution. And it's a very rare and extraordinary case. One of the consequences of that legal case was an extradition hearing, and the U.S. judge, Moskowitz, refused to extradite Philip back to France, stating vociferously that there was no evidence of a crime, and even if it was a crime in France, it is not a crime in the United States. So it was quite an exoneration, and out of that, people sought after Philip, media, scientists, doctors, and he worked with them, and he was ready to commit and help them in every way he could. It was a very exciting time. It was a long and horrendous legal battle, and to seek political asylum from France was almost impossible. But in the process, there was so much support, and so much support from the French people that he had helped. So there were support committees established in France and support committees established in the US. And out of that effort, so many politicians, doctors, scientists, academics, people rallied to his support. So it was a very exciting and fruitful time, actually, even amidst the horrendous persecution. That's how we all heard about Philip.